Hello, hello, hello. Good evening and welcome to another episode of Three Drams. As always, I am your host, Matt Healy. We are sitting down this evening with three fantastic whiskies and three fantastic guests. On tonight, we have two fantastic brand ambassadors and I believe our first master blender to the show. So I am absolutely delighted to be here. As always, I am your host. I am hosting this episode of Three Drams, which is brought to you by 3drams.com. And of course, the guys from irishmalts.com, which is a fantastic place to find all of your Irish whiskies, gins and putcheons from across the island, shipping pretty much all over the world. As always, everyone who has one of these little packs, we are tasting some fantastic new whiskeys. This is episode 5 for March. And good evening to you all in the comments. So please do let us know where you are in the world and what you are drinking, because this is going to be a fantastic episode. As always, guys, if you are Instagramming, tweeting, Pinteresting, whatever it might be, do feel free to use the hashtag 3Drams. That is the spelled out words, THREE, rather than the number, and we'll be able to find, share, like, and subscribe all over the different social medias. You, of course, if you are joining us with a pack, will have a little tasting kit just like this. Now, some of you may not have the actual little wooden plinth that comes with different subscription levels, but you will have a box just like this. Open it up, and we have a fantastic little array in front of you, which is denoted just here. So as we go through the tasting this evening, I'll be bringing you through each of the whiskeys and inviting you to pour them as we go along. And each of our guests will be able to tell us all about the spirit that will be in the glass. You have a little kit card with you here that'll be able to talk you through the whiskeys if you want to have a look at the tasting notes or some of the information on each of the brands. And it's going to be a fantastic evening. As always, feel free to engage and talk along with us, ask questions. If you're wondering what's going on, just put it into the comments. I'll be able to ask each of the guests in turn all of the things you've been wondering about the brands. Now, as always, straight after the show, if you are a subscriber to 3 Drams, you will have dropped into your email inbox an email which will give you 3 discount codes that will give you discounts to each of the portfolios that we're trying tonight. We have a fantastic €15 off with the Teeling Renaissance 3. Then we have 10% off both the Kilbeggan range and the Bushmills range that is exclusive to the subscribers of 3 Drams. So this is fantastic opportunity for you to be able to taste and purchase full bottles of what we're trying tonight. And as I said, as always, do try to taste along with us. But if you have the opportunity, leave a little bit in your glass as you're going along so you can compare each of the whiskeys against each other as we finish up the night. So I'm seeing a huge amount of people dropping in. We've got people coming in from Cork. Another big shout out from y'all here. We have Travis on Facebook, which is his first time here. So I'm delighted to have you and I welcome you to the show. We're here every month trying some of the fantastic and best Irish whiskies from across the island. In fact, this evening we have a whiskey that hasn't even launched yet, which I am super excited about. Then we have people from the East Coast. We're in Dunleary here. We have people coming in from Middleton. We've got Paul, welcome. Then we have people from all over the country. We have Poland, we have Germany. We've got coming in every week, every month, just like clockwork. Welcome, guys. As we go along, as I said, ask your questions. Feel free to engage. That is what all of this is. As I said, my name is Matt Healy. I am from potstill.com and I'm your host for this evening. So without further ado, I think it is about time that we have our first guest on the show. So the first whiskey that we're going to have in the glass is Dram number 1, which is the Teeling Renaissance Series 3 single malt, which is being presented to us by a fantastic advocate of the Irish whiskey industry, hailing from pretty much the exact opposite side of the world, who has made Ireland his home, Mr. Robert Caldwell, Teeling Global Whiskey Ambassador. Sir, welcome to the show. Welcome. How are you doing?
Hi, Matt. How you doing?
All good. Good. I'm delighted to have you here. So for the people at home, this is Dram number 1 right here, the little bottle. So if you want to break that seal, and as I said, if you want to keep a little bit either in the glass or in the bottle, just to the end to be able to kind of go back, compare, contrast, see what you've liked, what you haven't liked. That's mine going in there. I'm gonna be healthy. I'm gonna have a little nice glass emptying pour there. But Rob, I suppose you're gonna hear some interesting accents from you. Give us a quick rundown of where I suppose where you're joining us from and where you've come from to join us from there.
Yeah, great intro. Thanks, Matt. No, it's great to be here. So thank you. Thanks, Three Drams, and thanks, Irish Malts. As you might be able to tell, I grew up in Australia. It's not a very thick accent, I don't think. When I call my parents, they don't recognize it's me. So I have wonderful games to play with them when I call, pretending to be someone else abroad. But I traveled for a long period of time, bartending around the world, in Australia, in North America, in Canada, a bit of South America, London, Manchester. And then around 2010, 2011, I made the mistake of coming to Ireland and falling in love with an Irish girl and Irish whiskey. So I'm here to stay now, begrudgingly adopted Irish. So you're stuck with me.
Is that not every stranded person's story about coming to Ireland? There's always a fine looking Irish girl who brought you here. Or at least
I can do the ancestry thing too, kind of do my like links back and then just say, it was my great granddaddy's granddaddy. He was caught. And sure, Australians were just the Irishmen that got caught and then they got sent to paradise. And now we're just coming back.
Well, delighted to have you. Obviously, global brand ambassador for Teeling whiskey. I'm delighted to have you on the show. Obviously, we've met a lot of times on different webcasts and podcasts and whatnot. But this may be a lot of people's first time meeting you and maybe their first time trying Teeling whiskey. So I am absolutely delighted to be introducing the first. Oh, we lost Rob there for a second. Well, anyway, we're trying the Teeling Renaissance Series 3 single malt. Now, as we have a little technical difficulties with Rob there, I always say that one of the things I know about this whiskey, this is the Series 3, the Renaissance, which is the continuation of their Revival series with Teeling. So essentially what this is a 18-year-old single malt that spent, I believe, 16 and a half years in ex-bourbon barrels and then spent approximately 18 months in Muscat wine barrels. Now, if anyone was familiar with the Teeling Revival Series 4, that was a world-class whiskey, won awards all over the globe, and that actually was also Muscat barrels, which is the kind of genesis of this project. So taking from the Muscat grape, they went and took Muscat wine barrels, obviously freshly disgorged, brought to Ireland and integrated into the Teeling Cask program. Now, I am delighted that Rob Caldwell I can see him in the back. I'm going to bring him back in. Sir, how are you? Technical difficulties.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, everything just disappeared.
That's all right. Well, I've just gone through the fact that this Renaissance Series 3 is a part of the extended Revival series. There was the Muscat wine barrels, 18 months, and single malt in bourbon cask for 16 and a half years. But sir, that's pretty much your spiel. So why don't you give a little introduction to this whiskey?
Yeah, no, apologies that you had to do that. Yeah, really, really sorry. So this is an 18-year-old single malt. So this is part of the Renaissance series. So the Renaissance series grew out of our Revival series. But in a nutshell, these are age statement single malts influenced by very interesting cask types. Nowadays, primarily kind of really interesting wines. So I think the Renaissance series, so this is the box of the whiskey that you're trying there today. So number 1 was Madeira, which is a fortified wine from the island of Madeira. Number 2 was Australian Shiraz. And this one we're trying tonight is Muscat. So think of a sweet style of French wine. So yeah, 16 or so years, 16, 17 years in ex-bourbon cask, this single malt, and then transferred to these sweet wine casks for about 18 months. So again, another further 2 years, pushing up over that 18-year-old mark. Really, really interesting, really pushing the boundaries of what a fruit-forward Irish single malt can be. But as I was saying to you, a little bit more kind of the citrus and ripe pears and brighter kind of fruit flavors, as opposed to, those darker fruit, stone fruit flavors that we kind of associate with, say, a sherry finished single malt.
Absolutely. So if we're having a look at this, 46% alcohol by volume.
Yeah, so it's our signature. So we've done a few different ABVs, but our signature ABV is 46%. So yeah, it's a lovely kind of balancing point, as you know that sweet spot, that Goldilocks zone that allows us a nice and vibrant and very kind of impactful flavorful whiskey, but also it allows us a non-chill filter to whiskey as well. So retaining those natural fats and esters, really kind of contributing to a lovely, silky, velvety mouthfeel.
Fair enough. Well, I think possibly time enough. If I see everyone's jumping ahead of us in the chat, but sir, I'm going to say sláinte to you and a little cheers. And that is an amazing abundance of just juicy fruits. And then usually when you're thinking of those wine casks, you think of the kind of the more dried and more, I suppose, kind of darker fruits. But that's almost like drinking kind of a tropical punch or something. That's very fleshy, juicy, dark fruit, dark but not dried fruits, which I find very interesting.
Yes, of course. I mean, we do have that in a different range of whiskies, but for these, very vibrant, really kind of allowing that muscat to come through and influence Irish single malt in a really interesting way. So yeah, you're dead right. Like a lot of vibrant, fresh fruits, like those citrus and pear drops and fresh apricot and fresh mango. Normally when we're talking about whiskeys, we're talking about these, plums and cooking kind of flavors, like in a PX sherry or an Oloroso sherry. So yeah, very much on that side of the wine influences, which we absolutely love to explore. And it actually grew out of an experiment we'd done in the past with Muscat. We released part of the Revival series, the precursor to the Renaissance series. We released a Muscat influenced single malt that went on to win Best Irish Single Malt at the World Whiskey Awards that year. So we have a couple of these wine influence casks that have worked really well for us in the past. So we'll continue to explore them and their influences on different whiskies. Sauterne is a great example of one we've used time and time again. And it looks like Muscat will be another of those.
So I have a couple of questions coming through in the comments here that I think are great to bring up. The first was, do you reuse these casks after disgorging after the 18 months finish? And then there was a very similar question as well coming through here, but I've actually lost it. So in the professional tone that I am, please head with that one. Do you reuse your casks?
It depends on the cask. So there are certain flavors that you use once and you start to see that impact dissipate over the months. When you talk about finish time, those short finish times, it's not about just getting it in and finishing it for something interesting. These flavors start to dissipate over time and the wood influence becomes more pronounced. So you're almost spending the money on getting these, vastly more expensive wine casks. You leave it in there for too long, it's more wood than it is wine influence. So, I mean, that goes into, do you reuse them? Well, I mean, you take out the whiskey at that, opportune time. If you put another whiskey in, you're basically talking, a bourbon barrel that's been used, say, 2, 3, 4 times, it starts to become inert. And the flavors that you're getting from it are less about the seasoning and more about the wood. So very lovely for a kind of lovely marriage cask, things like that. But yeah, to answer the question, it depends on the cask and the shape that it's in and the impact that it has when we've used it that initial time.
Yeah, I mean, that rolls nicely into the question I was trying to find from Donal here in the comments, which is how long do the wine barrels last for maturing whiskey? And very much what you've answered there, that is how long is a piece of string, really? But
yeah, exactly.
In your warehouses, I know you work alongside Alex Chasko, your master distiller, who's been on a previous episode of 3 Drams. I mean, Teeling are very well known for having an abundance of experimental casks. I suppose, does Muscat become more of a part of the regular lineup, or is it still in that kind of experimental casks lineup?
That's a pretty good idea. So yeah, I mean, we've used up to 100 different casks in the maturation of Teeling whiskies. In the myriad of different spectrum of flavor out there. You and I know there's we're barely scratching the surface of the future of flavor within Irish whiskey. You talk about the size and shape of the cask, the seasoning, which we've just elaborated on, and then alternate wood types. You're really kind of talking in the millions of variable flavors. But yeah, I mean, we do have a lot going on in the warehouse at any given time, and yeah, these are a bit of on the expensive side. Sourcing these barrels. A great example is you want to do your research. You want to do your due diligence. You want to know where it came from. You're getting a good quality. Is it going to impact the whiskey in the way that you would like? Because yeah, it can be a quite expensive experiment if you spend upwards of 300-400 euro on an empty cask, put your very expensive 16, 18, 21-year-old whiskey in it, and nothing really happens. You kind of
not just nothing really happens. It could also be a barrel that's sulfited, so it comes out smelling and tasting like burning rubber. The cask might not be pressure tested, so you put your very expensive 18, 21-year-old single malt in, and it comes out the other end. I've had a great example of being at a distillery and walking through the barreling sheds when someone drilled a bunghole in the top for palletized casks. But and a lot of distilleries will use kind of what almost looks like a petrol pump handle for filling, and they put that into the cask, and it was on a pallet, and they started filling, and as quickly as they were putting it in, it was coming at the bottom because someone had drilled a bunghole at the top, knocked the cask over, and someone had righted it and then drilled a bunghole at the other end, and so there was just an open hole at both ends, and there was just spirit flooding at the bottom. So there's a lot of ways you can mess up a cask, and particularly if they're expensive.
That reminds me of a lesson I learned, that you don't take bartenders to the warehouse and help them out in the distillery. So I thought it'd be a good idea to take bartenders to our warehouse and put them to work. I'll get them filling casks. And as you said, it's like a petrol pump with a big kind of crank on it to fill the cask. So there's a fair amount of pressure in. You want to fill a 250 liter casks in a few seconds. You want to be efficient with your time. And I got the bartenders to fill it in, and they pulls the crank down, and as the cask starts to fill, they pull it back up. And then for some reason, like when you're driving a car, your brain just stops working, and instead of pulling up to close, they pull down to open, and everyone standing around taking photos of them filling a cask just got covered in this fountain of whiskey as it hit the cask and just exploded outwards. I'm like, I'm going to go.
Well, we have some questions here coming in, and Kevin wants to know, do you source your casks direct from wineries, or do you work with cooperages on the continent, or what kind of setup do you guys have in Teeling?
Anything and everything. It started obviously with cooperages and cask wholesalers. Obviously, your cask wholesalers, they get you the large amounts of bourbon casks needed to run an international whiskey company, and then they get rum casks and things like that in larger quantities. But yeah, I mean, the way that we source casks and always trying to find new casks, that takes us outside those channels. So we started going directly to producers that have that like-minded approach to making spirits. So we have cultivated very strong relationships with different producers. One of the most famous ones that we have is with Alexander Gabriel, the guy behind, or the genius behind Plantation Rums and Pierre Ferrand's and Citadel Gin and a lot of other companies. And I mean, him and Alex get along like a house on fire. And yeah, he shares that same kind of exploration. So he sources us casks that think are really cool, and then we give him casks. And yeah, there's this kind of symbiotic relationship. He uses a cask for, say, cognac or rum, and then goes, here, I think Alex will really like that. And then us, vice versa. The Black Pits cask that we use, that lovely kind of apricot and smoky peaty influenced Sauterne casks, went straight to Alexandra. So yeah, I mean, we build those relationships. There you go. So yeah, we're always looking to cultivate those relationships, work with different partners, going into Jerez in Spain and dealing with bodegas, with sherry bodegas, and then with the Carcavelos casks. That was pure chance, where Alex was on holidays and met a producer of Carcavelos, which is a style of fortified wine from Portugal that's using white grapes. and we got to chatting with him, and built a relationship. So yeah, I mean, it grows, and we're always looking for new casks and new collaborative experiences. Sometimes it comes through our distributor. For example, our big distributor in Germany, Borco, a brilliant guy that was running Teeling there, Michael Rennies. His friend opened a winery that was maturing German Riesling in wooden barrels. So then that relationship, put us together, and then we did a Riesling finish Teeling a few years back. So always looking to build those relationships.
Gordon wants to know how many how many casks you have in stock, full casks maturing away.
I mean, for the tens of thousands is the simple answer, is tens of thousands. For the more kind of knowledgeable among you that know the history of the Teeling family, and we built the first new distillery in Dublin in 125 years back in 2015, but some of our whiskey comes from the family's previous distilleries. So when we started the Teeling Whiskey Company, we had about tens of thousands of maturing family stock to build, a whiskey brand from. Now, 5 years later, or a little bit longer than that, but 5 years later, we have more than we started with to begin with. So we started with about tens of thousands. We've made tens of thousands from the Dublin distillery in Dublin. Obviously, sold some. Sorry?
You said you've made tens of thousands of casks.
What did I say?
You just said you've made tens of thousands. I didn't want people to be... No, we've made a shit ton of money out of this. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Tens of thousands of mini bottles of whiskey.
Yeah, exactly. And then Derek Collins just dropping in saying global ambassador. Now there's a job. Must be a job you're enjoying, Robert, because I know we've met each other on the road a lot. I think my most favorite memory is Athens Bar Show. I think it was the depths of September, winter, horrible here, and it was 28 degrees Celsius. Slinging cocktails in Athens. I mean, that was it's got to be a good an enjoyable job at least.
Of course. I mean, I've got a running joke at the moment with these Zoom tastings and things like that. Hi, my name's Rob. I'm the global ambassador for Teeling. It used to be my job to travel the world and drink whiskey and talk about whiskey, and now it's my job to sit in my bedroom and drink whiskey. Not nearly as glamorous, but still really, really fun.
Still important. And now at least 15 people have asked in the comments across all the channels that we're broadcasting tonight, what is the price of this whiskey? Can you put up the bottle again and I'll talk about the price a little bit?
Of course, yeah.
That is the box. Do you have a bottle beside you? Because it's a beautiful bottle itself.
Unfortunately not. No, it's so new that I don't have a bottle yet. I got the little sample that you guys got. This is very, very, very new. Some markets don't even have it yet. So definitely check it out on Irish Malts. I think there's a discount. There's only 9,000 bottles. It is an 18-year-old single malt, so you're getting a fantastic deal with that discount. But I don't even have a bottle yet. It does come in this. It comes in our decanter bottle, but unfortunately, I don't have a bottle.
We should have prepped this beforehand. It's normally $139.95 on Irish Malts, but if you are a subscriber to 3 Drams and you are enjoying your whiskeys with us, there will be a €15 off discount code dropping into your inbox straight after this show, which will bring it down to approximately $124.95 after the show. So a fantastic opportunity to pick up a Teeling Renaissance Series 3 single malt. Well, I think, Rob, it's almost time for us to move to talk to Sarah Dowling in Kilbeggan. But you have been absolutely spectacular. Feel free to enjoy in the background and backstage, as always. If anyone has any questions for Rob as we're going along, do throw them into the comments section. I won't be able to ask you because you won't be back on screen. But, Rob, I'm sure either you or the 3 Drams guys will be able to answer in the comments section, either during the show or just after the show. So, Rob, thank you so much for your time. I very much appreciate it. And we'll chat to you in a bit.
Cheers. Thanks, Matt.
So next, I am delighted to be joined by our first master blender or a head blender. I'm not sure of Sarah's title exactly. But she will correct me ever so slightly now as we come to Kilbeggan Pot Still, which is our second dram of the evening. And I am delighted to be joined by Sarah Dowling, a person who I've watched present a number of times, but never actually had the chance to interview. So I am incredibly excited. So Sarah, Good evening. How are you?
Hi, Matt. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Not a problem at all. First things first, please correct me on your title so I don't get that wrong ever again.
Distiller, blender distiller. Not master blender. I mean, I'm the only blender for Irish in Beam Suntory, but I've only been a blender for around 4 years now. So I feel
it's
like
4 years longer than me. I'll give you that.
Yeah, just coming up on 4 years. I've been in the whiskey industry for closer to 9 years, but I feel like the title of master blender is something that you kind of work towards and you earn. I don't feel myself I'm there yet, but I'll let you know.
That's very fair. I know many people in head roles who have the exact same attitudes as yourself. But I suppose for everyone who's sitting at home, we are on to dram number 2. So you have your little kit in front of you here. And this is a Kilbeggan single pot still.
Yep.
So feel free to fill your glasses. But before we jump and deep dive into the whiskey, Sarah, why don't you tell people a little bit about yourself and your role in Kilbeggan and Cooley?
Sure. So I'm actually from, my hometown is Athlone. So I'm from around 20 minutes drive down the road from Kilbeggan, but got my start in the whiskey industry in Scotland. So I worked in Scotch for close to 5 years, and then in various kind of jobs, environmental management and energy management, and kind of being involved in nosing and sensory panels as well, just because as soon as I got into the industry, I just was like, I want to learn as much as I possibly can. So kind of knocking on doors with blenders saying, can I join your panel, please? So then, 4 years ago, the job came up to blender and distiller based in Cooley Distillery, but working across Kilbeggan, Connemara and Tyrconnell. So some really great brands that I get to work with. Yeah.
Well, people seem very excited about the whiskey we're trying this evening. But in your, I suppose what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite people to have a little nose of this. And while we're doing it, why don't you tell us a little bit about what actually you do as a part of your role in Kilbeggan and Cooley?
Yeah, so based in Cooley Distillery, so we've got a malt and grain site. It's a really interesting site, and it's a great site to learn as much as possible about whiskey making. You know, we get malted barley in the gate, and we have malt mashing, fermenting, distilling, grain mashing, cooking, fermenting, distilling, maturation warehouses, blending on site, and a bottling hall. So we're sending out the gate bottled case goods. So anything that you want to get involved with and learn about in the whiskey industry on a nice scale as well. So that's the main part of my job is starting kind of with like new make spirit. So kind of working with the distillery team, just making sure that we're making consistent quality new make spirit. So lots of nosing of new make spirit, and then kind of stock management, just making sure that we're taking samples as it matures, and kind of using the right stock at the right time when it comes to kind of this time of year. We're working a lot on forecasting and kind of making sure everything that we're using the right stock and the right products at the right time. And then also new product development as well. So getting to work on, I think the first one I worked on was the Tyrconnell 15-year-old Madeira finish.
Very nice.
Which was beautiful. Yeah, I got to be part of the Kilbeggan rye, Kilbeggan pot still, the 16-year-old muscatel finish for Tyrconnell, and a few interesting things coming in the pipeline as well. So yeah, it's never a dull moment, and it's kind of a mixture between kind of the real operational side of everything, kind of like technical distilling, and then the creative side as well, about getting to kind of innovate and kind of just be a little bit more creative as well, that side of it. So yeah,
that's very fair.
The dream.
I don't think people always understand of the kind of consistency that comes with, or the importance of consistency as well that comes with distilling. Like you're saying, a lot of what you do is working with the new make to ensure that what you're distilling today will have a flavor profile and that will continue a consistent flavor going through the portfolios. And of course, between Cooley, Kilbeggan, there's a lot of different distillate styles that you do make. So that must be a very interesting job to keep people in line and keep the distillate where in the flavor profiles that you need it to be.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of about making sure that we're, enforcing our cask policy, that we're filling the casks in the right ratios, our, AB 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. So then I've got, the right choice years later when I'm coming to fill the vats. So for our Kilbeggan traditional, for example, we have big vats that we use with all the different components of the recipe. And it's kind of my job begins in that side of it, is making sure that we're filling the vats with the right cask types, the right age, the right age bracket, kind of continuously sampling and comparing to previous weeks and months. And then kind of, making sure the recipe, making sure that every Kilbeggan that you buy, every Connemara, every Tyrconnell is the same or within a recognizable taste profile as a previous one. And there's lots that goes into that. So yeah.
Exactly. So whether you buy it in Shannon or Shanghai, it'll still taste the same.
Absolutely, yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about what's in our glasses then this evening? So it's the Kilbeggan single pot still.
Yeah, Kilbeggan single pot still. So this is distilled in Kilbeggan distillery and matured in Kilbeggan distillery as well. It's a pot still whiskey. So for in Ireland, a pot still means that it's the mash bill. So kind of the original grains that went into the mash when we were distilling there's a specific kind of rules that you must follow. So it needs to be at least 30% malted barley, at least 30% unmalted barley, and up to 5% another grain type. So our mash bill will be around 63% malted barley, around 30-ish%, 32, 33% unmalted barley, and then we've got 2.5% oats.
Fantastic.
So it's a really, the character of the whiskey is really coming from that mash bill. So I always think when I nose pot still whiskey, the first thing I think of is green. So like green grassy notes. Is that something that you pick as well? You pick up?
Absolutely. Very fresh. Little light as well. When you say green notes, I get that little kind of spry and a little bit of orchard fruits in there as well.
For sure. There's a lot of pear, I think, more in this one. So I always say apple is a character of Cooley Distillery, but pear comes really strongly in Kilbeggan Distillery. So pear, honeysuckle and melon as well are two ones that on the nose. And for me, when I was first nosing this, getting samples up from Kilbeggan to trying to familiarize myself as a blender with our stock, I was coming from Scotland and we don't have the same. We don't have a pot. Scotland doesn't produce pot still with this unmalted barley element. And at first, when I was trying it and I was picking up that real strong green grassy note, I was like, do I love it? Or do I not like it, but it's so different? Like, it took me a long time. It took me even a couple of weeks. I was nosing the pot still and the rye, kind of going back and forth between them. And I was trying to just wrap my head around these new flavors that I'd never spent a huge amount of time kind of before. And
then what happened when they threw oats into the mix for you? That must have been different again. Definitely not a grain you see in the Scottish whiskey industry.
The oats, again, is not something I'd ever really kind of worked with. But the oats, it makes it really creamy and really not so much on the nose, but when you taste, it's like the mouthfeel. It's almost like that first taste of porridge in the morning.
Absolutely. Well, on that note, I'm going to give you a little say sláinte to everyone, and I'll have a little taste. I know everyone else in the comments already tasted, but I'll have my first little taste.
So it's quite spicy.
Yeah, it's a fantastic that unmalted barley pot still spice, very prominent and pronounced for what you say, kind of mid-30s on the unmalted barley. It comes through with great character. There's that kind of creamy oiliness at the back as well. I'm interested that there's a very I don't know how to say it. It's almost like a lemon drop or a pear drop flavor on the palate as well, which was quite nice, and it goes very well with the kind of creaminess of the mouthfeel.
Do you get a little bit of mint as well?
Oh yeah, I can see a little bit of mint in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I see a couple of people in the comments saying that kind of butterscotch element as well. A lot of things in this glass, I think, could contribute to a little bit of a butterscotch element. Do you know what casks were used in the maturation for the pot still?
Yeah, American bourbon casks.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Perfect.
So what I'd like to suggest, and you don't have to take me up on this, because I know it might be controversial, but I've got my little milk jug here full of water. So I feel like when I add a little bit of water, the creaminess really comes to the fore a lot more of the oats. So for me, I kind of like to dilute it a little bit up sometimes. And
you said controversial, and then you said milk jug, and I thought this was going to go in an entirely different direction.
I know. I think, why did I say milk jug? But this is very much an at home tasting. You know, I don't have the milk jug in work with me.
Oh, that's sad to hear that you're not there, lab coats on, cast samples with milk jugs. No, and you say controversial. I'm a big proponent of drink your whiskey whatever way you like it, as long as you've paid for it. Don't steal people's whiskey. I actually don't have water beside me, although that is something I wish I had right now. I might just throw Lauren on and I'll run off and get some. No, I won't do it to Lauren. I can see her in the background, terrified that I'm about to throw her up.
Yeah.
So
it would be interesting in the comments if anyone does stick a little bit of water in. Do they this? For me, the spiciness kind of edges away, and the oatiness, the creaminess really comes to the fore. So it's quite interesting.
And I'm looking in the comments here, and I'm saying, well, first of all, Denise thinks that this is fabulous. Obviously a good person to pull up there. So I see a lot of people. It's
nice to see your pal's face when you're doing something like this. It kind of is really reassuring.
Exactly. I see a lot of people. There's the smoothness, the mouth coating, spice. And then people saying how it's changing a lot with the addition of water. Now, of course, 43% alcohol by volume. This is one of my favorite drops to come out with Kilbeggan. So I'm, delighted to have it on the show this evening. And I think that I think a lot of people are testing in the comments here as well. Kilbeggan does have some fantastic whiskeys. Obviously, I have the Kilbeggan small batch rye sitting behind me. The Kilbeggan single grain as just a standard is one of my favorites on the market. I have spent many a night nursing a glass of that, which is a fan favorite of mine.
Mean whiskey sour, the single grain.
We'll get you on for a cocktail class one of these days, Sarah.
Please. Well, I think my friends will tell you that I need a class because I think mine are too heavy on the alcohol.
Sorry, I shouldn't laugh while drinking whiskey. But yeah, I mean, look, if that's what we need to do, is we should have a little fun with this. Everyone gets a branded cocktail maybe, and we'll get maybe Chris Hennessy or something down in the Dillon to bring us through it. And actually, speaking of the Dillon, I know the Paris, Texas bar in Kilkenny won a world icon award this evening. So maybe Dillon or the Paris, Texas bar could bring us through it, and it'll be a good evening.
As long as I get to try one of everything.
Oh, absolutely.
Nice, you know?
I'll put it together. Don't worry. It'll be a 3 Drams exclusive. But I'm loving the comments here. A lot of people dropping in saying good evening, which is fantastic, and seeing so many, actually hundreds of people across the different platforms dropping in. People seeing a creamy fudge finish. A couple people getting a touch of cinnamon on the nose. Addition of water, kind of bringing out the oats, the flavor and contribution a lot. So, and also I'm enjoying watching the comments as well, because there's a lot of people who are enjoying the addition of water and some enjoying it pre the addition of water, which is fantastic because taste is subjective.
It's controversial, but you know, at least it wasn't milk.
That's a very good point. And there is a question in from Richard Byrne. He wants to know, firstly, how much is it, which I'll be able to tell you in 1 second. And he wants to know how old it is. So officially non-age statement whiskey. And I don't know if you have any kind of guide on how old it is, or if it's just officially a non-age statement.
So it's non-age statement. I'm not sure the exact age. I can't, just because I can't remember. It was a couple of years ago now. But I think it's around 8 years old-ish. So yeah, so it's kind of a nice age, you know, a nice amount of maturity in it. I tried it at when it was, I think, around 6.5, and then when I was around 7 years old, and that was when I was kind of getting to know that whiskey as well. So it was great then when it kind of came together that it was the right time to release the whiskey, just in kind of the evolution of Kilbeggan and the brands, and then to try it around when it was 8 years, and it had just taken that extra level of, it kind of had elevated a little bit. Kind of those oaty notes had started to come to the fore. The green grassy notes had leveled off a little bit, so it was just the perfect time in so many ways to get to work on this project. Yeah.
Exactly. And to touch back on the price, in Irish malts, you'll find it all day, every day at $53.95. And then in your email inbox after the show, we're going to see a lovely 10% discount on the entire Kilbeggan range. Yeah. So make sure to check that out if you want to pick up your bottles. As I said, the rise. Exactly. And it's great. I'm seeing Denise coming back into the comments section. And of course, Mr. John Cashman, who is, if anybody is familiar, John Cashman, a legend of the industry, dropping in.
Part of this project as well. Big part of this.
Well, it's a delight to have you, John. And we're lovely to have you in the comments section watching over on YouTube. So I suppose if you were to, describe to people just very quickly, I suppose what is, I suppose, the difference in between this and the rye, obviously both coming out of Kilbeggan, both having interesting mash bills, and perhaps people don't know too much about the difference between them. I don't need you to go into a full breakdown, but perhaps just a very quick interlude in between the two of them.
So what's the same between them is there is quite a lot of similarities. So I don't know if you're nosing, as you're nosing the pot still, there's a kind of a, I don't know if you've been to Kilbeggan Distillery, but you can almost smell Kilbeggan Distillery, kind of the essence of it from sticking your nose into a glass of either the pot still or the rye. It's a really special place. There's so much history and heritage there. And I feel like no matter where I am in the world, when I nose the pot still or the rye, I'm just transported back to one of the warehouses. Safety shoes, high vis, the whole lot, either freezing cold or boiling hot. There's almost like this smell in the air somehow is transferred into the casks. So that's there's so many things that contribute to that. There's similarities. The water it's made from, the fermentation vessels, and obviously the effect of the pot still, but also just the place that they were matured. And then the differences are the rye is really, really spicy. Like if we think this is spicy and it hits you when you try it at 43%, the rye is like a next level spice. It scared me at first when I was first trying it, because I didn't know if I could get, if that was a palate that I was ready for. So you still get the green grassy notes, but it's the backbone is spice. Whereas in pot still, green grassy is more to the fore, and then that kind of the oats and the creaminess and the comfort that comes, just 2.5% of oats brings.
Absolutely.
So, yeah,
well,
they're siblings.
Exactly. Well, so to reminder to everyone, the Kilbeggan single pot still, 43% ABV. You will find it on irishmalts.com for just under that €54 price point. All bourbon matured, an absolutely delicious drop. And I'm delighted, Sarah, to have you on the show, bring us through it. I know that everyone in the comments section is enjoying themselves profusely. I'm even seeing some people enjoying Kilbeggan pot still in an old fashioned, which is just fantastic. So people
really is going to help with that. It's going to kind of amplify in that.
I really need to get you on a teaching a cocktail class now. You seem excited about it, Sarah. I love it.
Teaching? No, I'm a student. I want to be down the back drinking.
There you go. Well, Sarah, thank you so much for your time. As always, anyone who has any questions as we go along, feel free to drop into the comments section. And if there's anything we've missed as we go along, either the guys from 3 Drams or an Irish Malt to be able to pick them up, or perhaps Sarah, one of your teammates from Kilbeggan and Cooley, be able to pick it up. I think there's one last comment coming in here that sums it up quite nicely. Well done, Sarah. Cracking whiskey. So at that, I think we'll sign off. Thank you so much for your time, and feel free to enjoy in the backstage.
I will do. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, we are now coming to our third and final whiskey of this evening, Dram number 3. And this is fantastic to be able to say that this is the first look at a brand new whiskey, a pre-release tasting that is launching in mid-April. We are trying tonight the Bushmills Caribbean rum cask finish with Bushmills brand ambassador Laura. So Laura, welcome. Lauren, my apologies. Lauren, please accept my apologies on that. There's two things that's screwed up this evening.
The whiskey's in. It's okay. I forgive you.
There you go. I'm mortified. I apologize. But welcome to the show. How are you? What is going on? Where are you joining us from this evening?
I am from the beautiful north coast of Ireland, North Antrim. I live about 20 minutes away from the distillery. Depending on which direction the wind's blowing, some days you're convinced you can smell it. So it's always been on my doorstep. So that's where I'm joining us from tonight. Well, I'm in my kitchen, but it's nearby.
Exactly. So we've gone from the other side of the world in Australia to A-Town down with that loan, and now we're in lovely Antrim coast. So I'm delighted to have you here. For everyone who's imbibing at home, this is dram number 3. If we're a tree right there. Again, I invite anyone who has whiskey still left in the glass to keep it. I have little drops behind me here that so you can check back across all 3 to see what the kind of similarities and differences are. But Lauren, tell us, Bushmills brand ambassador, what is that like? What do you do for a living? What is it like in the world of a brand ambassador for Bushmills?
Yeah, well, how I kind of got into this role was I started originally working in the distillery as a student. So I studied languages at university, and I remember one summer seeing that they were looking for language speakers, because obviously we get a lot of international visitors at the distillery. So I thought I might as well apply. Had absolutely no clue about whiskey whatsoever. But as soon as I started, within a couple of weeks, I was like, hold on, there is a whole world here that I've just never experienced before. And I absolutely fell in love with the place. There's just something about Bushmills that just pulls you in, and you can't explain it. It's the people, the distillery itself, the beautiful old buildings kind of juxtaposed with the new buildings. And I was there and I worked as a tour guide. So my role was to basically tell the story of Bushmills to all of our visitors, talk them through the production process. And I did a bit of whiskey education while I was there as well. And then 2 years ago, the opportunity came up to be the Bushmills brand ambassador, and I grabbed it with both hands. So what my role kind of involves now is a lot of it would be bartender education. So basically educating our wonderful Irish bartenders about the world of Bushmills, but also hosting events like our Black Bush Story series, which some of you might have been or might have seen before, and a little bit of everything really, and it's just wonderful. Yeah, so I've been with Bushmills for 7 years now. I've been working with the brand. I'm still in love with it.
Well, one thing I find amazing about people who work with Bushmills is that people who work Bushmills don't ever seem to leave. Anyone you talk to in Bushmills, it's like you look 20 and they're like, well, I've been here for 43 years. And I find it amazing
for you. Yeah, it's so true. Someone actually said to me when I started this role, they were like, you do realize that this has got you for life now, like you can't get out anymore. But it's so true. Even at the distillery, there's people who have been there 30 years, some are there 45, 50 years. There is something about it that just really pulls you in. It's incredible. I know I'm stuck for life now, which I'm not complaining about.
Well, so I suppose we've got this fantastic pre-release tasting of the Bushmills Caribbean rum cask finish. It's not even on the Irish market. There's a lovely picture of it right there. I suppose give us a run through of what it is, because people are diving into the glass already. I can see in the comment section.
Perfect. And as you said, Matt, this is a pre-release tasting. So as you said, it's available mid-April. So this is the first time I've tried it live on a tasting as well, which is fantastic. So the Caribbean rum cask finish, I'm sure many people are familiar with the original Bushmills, or the Bushmills original, white label, whatever you want to call it. So Bushmills is, of course, first and foremost a single malt distillery. So on site at the distillery, we produce triple distilled single malt whiskey. So produce 100% from Irish malted barley, which gives us this most beautiful new mix spirit. You can see right here. I need to be very careful that I don't mistake this for my water. So that's what we call our Bushmills DNA, or what I affectionately like to call baby bush. So that is the core of everything we do. That triple distilled malt spirit is really, really fruity, really floral, and so fragrant. It's absolutely beautiful. It almost has a crisp, fresh green apple hint to it. So because it is so beautiful and so delicate, it blends really, really nicely with a lighter Irish grain spirit made from corn. And they blend so beautifully well together. So the Bushmills Original, as we know it, is a blend. So it's approximately about 60% malt and the rest is grain. So the Caribbean rum cask is the same ratio as that. However, what is different here is that the malt component of the blend is aged in Caribbean rum casks. So either aged completely in ex rum casks, or some of it has been recast from bourbon barrels. But that rum addition and that rum cask element in there just gives the whiskey the most beautiful. It's tropical, it's exotic, it's, as you said earlier, it's just juicy. You kind of want to bite it. It's absolutely beautiful.
So I suppose let's have a little nose, a cheers, and a little sip, just because I see a lot of people diving into this glass already.
Everyone's tucked in already.
Okay,
cheers, Launcha. So on the nose, you definitely get that classic Bushmills, the honey maltiness. It's definitely evident on the nose there. I love what Sarah said about walking into the distillery and it reminds you of the smell. That's exactly what this reminds me of, just being right in the fermentation or distillation area. But the addition of the rum casks, it gives you, it's almost, I don't know, Matt, if you can find this, but it's almost like toasted coconut to me. It's like, it's very, very tropical.
And I've said this on numerous different 3 Drams. I have an absolute soft spot for tropical fruits and whiskies. So you're winning me over easily here.
It's right up your street. You've already had a sip there. I'm going to go ahead.
Go for it there now, yeah.
Robert hit the nail on the head. Pineapple's beautiful. It's almost like caramelized brown sugar. But that Bushmills malt, that DNA, the malt component, and that beautiful honey maltiness just runs right through. And what I love about the rum cask finish as well, if anyone's tried the Bushmills Original, it's quite a crisp, fresh finish. It doesn't really linger too much. But the rum cask element here provides that beautiful, sweet, lingering finish. It's long and it's soft. And that purely comes from the rum cask.
So you're saying that this is almost an extension or an evolution of the original or white label, as people might know it.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is an extension, as you said, of the original. So this is a permanent addition to the Bushmills family. I know we've had a lot of releases in the past few months that are limited edition and a specific number of bottles, but nope, this is here to stay.
So this is a range.
Sorry, Matt, what did you say?
So this is a core range.
Yeah. It is indeed, yeah, it's a core range, absolutely. So it is, as you say, kind of an extension of the original itself.
Fantastic, yeah. So there's a lot of questions coming in on pricing. As I said, this is a pre-release tasting, not landing until the middle of April. So much so I have no idea what price this is. So they'll most definitely be coming to you in emails when it lands on irishmalts.com and 3drams.com. There's also a lot of people asking about glassware. I know you have a lovely stemmed Bushmills glass.
Yeah, this guy.
I just, on a side note, I'm using kind of an ISO Capita. And then there's also, I have a Tua glass around me here somewhere. It's very much what I suppose, well, for me, I was looking for non-branded because so many of my glasses are branded with random different things. But your Bushmills stemmed glasses are absolutely beautiful for nosing as well.
They're great. They are an absolute nightmare though, because they're so delicate. They're so fragile. So you have to be so careful that when you're cleaning them and wash them, you don't knock them over. Definitely don't put them in a dishwasher. But no, they're also, and as you say, these little kind of like the sherry stem glasses, so good to get your nose right in there and get a really good aroma. In terms of price, Matt, I reckon it's around €24.
Fantastic.
That's going to be so really, really accessible. It's a really versatile whiskey. Like, it's a lovely, easy sipping whiskey, but it's also, as I said, the blends are so versatile. They're great for cocktails. We mentioned old fashions earlier. Even a Caribbean highball with a little bit of soda and lemon. It's perfect for any palate.
Sure, half the world's drinking highballs these days.
Half the world is drinking it. Yeah, they've really taken off the past few years, haven't they?
Absolutely. And generally started basically in 2 Japanese bars, which is mad. But anyway, aside the fact of that, there's a lot of people very much enjoying not only the flavor, but also the potential price point of this. Simon coming in here say it's really easy to drink, maybe too easy, in fact. Sounds like someone that has polished off the whiskey in his glass already. So you're saying that the rum element to this is the malt is matured either partially or wholly in rum casks. And a number of people have asked, is there a specific region of rum or a general kind of pan kind of Caribbean rum element in this?
So the funny thing about Bushmills is we're much more concerned about what the casks can do for us and how they benefit and really complement our Bushmills DNA, our new mixed spirit, rather than where they're exactly sourced from. The likes of our sherry casks, for example, we would work really, really closely with the Antonio Paez Bodega in Jerez in Spain. We have a really lovely relationship with them. We've built it up over about 40, almost 50 years. The rum casks, to my knowledge, are Dominican Republic. And that's pretty much as far as we go with that one. As I said, we much prefer what they can do for us and complement our new mixed spirit as to where they come from in this instance. That's
very fair. And speaking of Antonio Paez Lobato, the Cooperage Den in Spain, I've actually visited in the day I was there. They were lasering and raising Bushmills sherry butts. So I cheekily signed the head of a Bushmills cask. Now it was going into seasoning, so it's most likely still seasoning away in Jerez. But someday the cask with my cheeky signature that no one was looking. I just ran in and wrote my name on it.
A Sharpie. So the next time, so when they eventually arrive to Bushmills, I'm going to have to sift through about 400,000 barrels to find your signature.
Exactly.
We'll have to release a special whiskey for you, Matt, with the barrel single cask with your signature.
Exactly. 3 Irish malts and 3 drams. They'll buy it for me. I don't have the buying power.
That's it. No, it's that they have a fantastic Instagram account as well, and you can actually see them lasering on the OBD as well, like on their barrels, which is phenomenal. So it's a fantastic account to follow. As we say, maturation. It's always been my favorite part of the whiskey production process. I'm just fascinated by it, and it's such an incredible account to follow.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and they're a good one. Anytime you have anything to do with sherry on your Instagram account, they will like it for you. So you want some good likes, Antonio Paez Lobato will do it for you. A lot of people enjoying this whiskey in the comments section. Looking saying there's another one. So Dave Cummins dropping in to say that you're doing a smashing job. So keep up the great work.
Thanks, Dave.
Then we're seeing you can smell, taste, and feel the Caribbean with this one. I think that's a fantastic rendition and a fantastic, as I said, like evolution from the Bushmills original. It just gives that little bit of a longer mouthfeel and a little bit more of a sweet backbone. And as Donald O'Shea said, lovely drink for the summer. And I think this would be definitely one I would have for a nice, refreshing highball, like you mentioned. That'd be, I think, ideal for a summer's day.
Exactly. It's perfect, and it's so nice, and I'm sure many people will agree to see all these releases coming out of Bushmills. I think it's been so nice, the feedback from this release and our Caldwell collection releases. I think I can't go on a podcast and not mention that. It's been incredible to see, and I think for many years people kind of viewed Bushmills as kind of the sleeping giant of the Irish whiskey industry, which is a very fair point, I think. But it's been fantastic to see people almost kind of reignite and rekindle their love for Bushmills.
Absolutely. I remember when the new core range or the new limited edition Causeway collection was coming out. I think on my live stream, Pot Still Live on on every second Thursday. I think my explanation was Bushmills is doing something, and now you can't stop Bushmills doing things. There's so much going on. It's fantastic. Just because, like you said, there was so long that it was very, very plain, not plain sailing, but it was there weren't any kind of big new releases. There's and now you guys are just coming out of the gates with so many fantastic releases. There are some questions that you've already confirmed. There's going to be core range dropping in kind of middle of April. I think the guys in Irish Malt are saying somewhere around the 12th of April. And then there's a big proclamation here from Stephen who's saying that may replace Blackbush as his favorite everyday tipple, because that's
a big statement.
This is a thing this is a hill I will die on, that every true Irish whiskey collector will always have a bottle of Blackbush in their collection. Now,
you're so right.
I have a 10 behind me, but it's only because I've almost finished my Blackbush, and I thought having a full
mine's looking a little bit sad in the background. There's less than a quarter bottle left. No, that's a big statement. I think that's what I love so much about Blackbush, is everybody seems to have a story circulating around Blackbush whiskey. All my kind of bartender trainings that I do, so many people say exactly what you said, Matt. Like, their granddad always had Blackbush in the cupboard in the house, or their dad got them into drinking whiskey with Blackbush. It really is. It's what I kind of call a nostalgic whiskey. As you said, anybody who loves Irish whiskey, anyone who loves Bushmills, absolutely adores Blackbush. But how couldn't you? The price point, the quality of the whiskey, it's a cracker.
Absolutely. And speaking of which, if you haven't had Blackbush or the rest of the Bushmills range, this whiskey, Caribbean rum cask finish, is not available to purchase yet because this is a pre-release tasting. But if you keep an eye out for that fancy email that's going to drop into your inbox from the guys from Irish Malts and 3 Drams, you will get 10% off the entire Bushmills range, which includes the Malaga cask, which is a cheeky about €40 off the bottle. Or if you were feeling it, a little Blackbush, I think still 80% malt in that bottle, a little sherry cask influence going on with some fantastic small batch grain whiskey in there. Hit that little buy button with your 10% off. You're not going to regret it. I'm going to put a little pot still guarantee on that one. But just to round up, Caribbean rum cask, all the malt the malt is either matured or partially matured in rum casks. This is the elevation of the original. It is going to be core range, 40% ABV, dropping in the middle of April. You've given us a fantastic insight into what the price may be around the €24 mark.
I just realised what I said there, Matt. I meant to say £24. I'm up north, so I'm going, it's just £24, but €30 approximately, which is still fantastic for what it is.
I was a little hesitant on the number there, as I put a little asterisk on that, but even €30 is really fantastic. So down here, €24 is about how much tax we're paying anyway. So and I really like this comment from Martin, who says this email is going to cost me a fortune. And I feel you on that, my friend. I feel you. Well, I am going to wrap up a little bit and get towards the end, because I am taking up lots of people's time here. But Lauren, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for introducing us to this whiskey and for giving us your time. So thank you. And I'll say Sláinte.
Sláinte, thanks so much for having me, Matt. It's a pleasure.
Perfect. And now, guys, I'm going to say thank you for joining us. This has been a fantastic tasting. If anyone still has any of your whiskeys in the glass, like I do here, do feel free to have a little nose between them. You've got Drams 1, 2, and 3. And let us know in the comments, what is your favorite whiskey of the evening? What are you definitely going to buy? There's been a fantastic lineup with some fantastic discounts. We've had the Teeling Renaissance Series 3, which is the 18-year-old single malt in what's just a big, juicy cask. We've got the Kilbeggan single pot still with its 2.5% oats coming in at 43% ABV. And then we've just had the Bushmills Caribbean cask at a lovely 40% alcohol by volume. The Teeling is going to have 15% off, down to $24.95. The Kilbeggan's going to have 10% off the entire Kilbeggan range. You've got the single pot still, you've got the rye, you've got the single grain, all excellent in my opinion. Bushmills Caribbean rum cask, Pre-release, you can't get it yet. You're going to be looking around €30 when it comes out. But there is 10% off the entire Bushmills range once that email lands. If you aren't signed up to 3 Drams, I cannot tell you that you're going to get this email because you won't. What are you doing? Sign up to 3 Drams. If you have the 3 Drams kit in front of you, or you're going to drink it later on and you're watching back, make sure to, on social media, if you're posting it anywhere, hashtag 3 Drams, spell out both words. We won't find you if you use digits. But from myself and the team at 3 Drams and Irish Malt, I want to say a really big thank you to the 3 people who've joined us. Robert Caldwell, Global Brand Ambassador from Teeling Whiskey Company. We had Sarah Dowling, who's distiller blender from Kilbeggan and Cooley and Beam Suntory. And then Lauren McMullan, from Bushmills, brand ambassador. You guys have all been amazing. Keep letting us know in the comments. Even there's a lot of people ranking their whiskeys as well. And I'm loving the fact that whenever people rank their whiskeys 1 through 3, it's never the same as each comment comes through. So from me, from 3 Drams, from Irish Malts, a big thank you to our guests, a big thank you to you at home tasting along. And I really hope you enjoyed yourself. And until next month, guys, enjoy yourselves and keep an eye out for emails. Slán.